Hello, everybody. Welcome to Final Podcast 14. And today I'm just want to talk about what this podcast is all about. Um, I'm usually probably with somebody co-hosting it and everything. Most of the time, with my friend Jess. But due to circumstances right now, we can't get to it. But I figure I start doing the first episode myself, which is called Episode 1 or Chapter 1 for you RPGers out there. Um, But yeah, I've been playing Final Fantasy 14 due to the circumstances that we're in right now. That is during 2020, which hopefully everybody's reading this history book right now and learning, and like in the future, who's ever watching this knows what it is. Um, because the YouTube algorithm and everything will go, nah, we don't want you to use that word. That's a very bad word. So I'm just gonna be pretty honest. So I wanted to start off on how I played Final Fantasy. And it all started when I was on PS3 and uh, just signed up for the beta. It was good for what it was. And yeah, um, it was pretty good for what its time was, and I thought that was a good game and everything. Then I took a break for a while, went back, and like bought the game. It was actually on sale for like $20 for the core game, which was, I think, if I remember the date correctly. If I remember the date or anything. Let me see. Let me see the date real quick. I figure this would be a little more authentic since we can't think of everything off of the top of our heads like we're all knowing. So I've got to look at the PlayStation. So PlayStation, which would have been around right before what I can explain would be is I did this during the summer, probably July. That's when I started playing that beta. So I was a dragoon, human, or what was I a human? I don't even remember my first character. I think it was a Makote or something. So anyway, I went played it for a while. Then Heaven's War, but then I just didn't like any of the races in that game. Like I just didn't care. Like you got your normal human, your long giant elf, your bulky character, the Lalafell, which are your goblins, and what else? Well, what else? And then you got your bulk characters and the Makoke, which are the cat people. Uh, when Heaven Wars came out, I picked up the thing. I realized, oh, I had to play the story. I did pick up the expansion though. I played a bit of the story though, but they had a new race in there called the Aura, which are half dragons, half human. I was like, oh man, that race looks so sick. Oh my god, I want it so badly. Luckily, I had a appearance change formula, which I saved for that when that happened, and I literally became that race. And ever since, I love that race. There's no other race that looks cooler than that. I think in Final Fantasy's history, with the tail, with the horns, and everything. Um, but then I really couldn't power through it because I did beat A Realm Reborn and all that stuff. But then I realized there was more, and there was stuff in between Heaven's Ward, which I was like, this is stupid. But then I decided to go and hibernate for a little bit, and after a while, I decided to go and give it a chance, and I literally went in there. Um, yeah, so then I started playing more and more. Got to Heaven's Ward finally, and it was worth it. It was finally worth it because everything was so cool and everything. And fighting dragons, these dragons were so angelic. The whole thing was revolving around the dragoons, which was really cool. Which I really should power up my dragoon just for these quests, but eh, I I really don't know. Um, but once I got to level 50, I decided to change my class to a samurai because I had Bloodborne at the time. So I changed it to samurai, and Jesus Christ, I love it. I love samurai. I love the symbol. I love the rotation. Samurai is so easy to learn once you figure out the combos and everything, and you know, and lighting up your three katanas and getting out your ultimate and everything. It is definitely worth playing with once you figure that out. Especially when you use your first one. It's kind of like a minute nerf of a minute like poison, so it slowly kills the enemy, which is really cool. I love. Um, yeah, and then there's like other classes that I really enjoy. And then there's Red Mage, which is really cool. Like it's essentially if you haven't played with a magic character and you don't want to go there, you can. And Red Mage can also heal, which is really cool. I might level that one up. Who knows? It is a cool. They do such a good job with with the game and everything itself. Um, then I've been mount hunting a little bit here and there. I caught a couple of them. Bought one. I'm ashamed of myself, but you know what? They do such a good job with this game that I love it so much. So I bought the Advent Children SD or Fenred motorcycle, the one from Advent Children. Oh man, I love that motorcycle. I love riding it around. My friend who hasn't even played Final Fantasy 14 was like, "I hate you," because he loves Final Fantasy 7 too much sometimes. But I don't blame him. It's a cool motorcycle. Even I'm not the biggest fan of 7, and even I think that motorcycle is amazing. Is really cool. So yeah, I drive around that all the time. Um, Um, I bought the Shadowbringers. I bought the deluxe, a digital deluxe edition of Shadowbringers, where I got another mount. I bought that, and I am such a Final Fantasy VIII fanboy. Like there are people that hate it. There's some people like me that like it. Um, I got Squall's revolver weapon, which is really cool, and it glamours onto it. So I got for that. Got to Heaven's Ward. I think as soon as I got to level 60, I tried out Gunbreaker for a little bit, and it's a really cool class. I prefer Samurai because I like to deal damage, a lot and lots of damage. So yeah, Stormblood was really cool too. A lot of revelations. I think it is the eight right now of of this trilogy of games right now until Endwalker comes out. So we I've been working. So I worked through it. I love Zeros or something his name is, the main villain. I love his concept of his armor. I just love that he's obsessed with the Warrior of Light with you. I love that. So, but and then but then we go to the craziest thing. I don't know what they were thinking when they were doing this thing. We were like, let's go to a world where everything's flip flopped, and also you've been isekai'd because isekai is very popular at the time because you had sort of online, Overlord, Rise of the Shield Hero. There were a lot of animes based around that, so it made sense. They probably were watching that and say, hey, why don't we do something like this? But it does exist though in another realm. So that I finished that, and oh my god, the music is so amazing. Like I sometimes listen to it on YouTube because it's just so good. Like especially the final boss music. Like I'm not gonna spoil anything, but that music and the scenery, the characters, you play with the characters. You get an example of like what a gunbreaker is like. You get an example of like there, and you actually have your party with you the whole time. I know I'm going everywhere, but I'm a guy with ADHD, so I try my best to concentrate on everything. But I did my thoughts and stuff right there. But now let's get to the other stuff about Final Fantasy 14 that I love. I love the raids. Like you can randomly get in there, help people out, get in, get out. Like, and some of the raids are based on Final Fantasy's history, like X Death, Kefna, um, the Phantom Train from Six. You could get to see what the Phantom Train in Six looks like in 3 dimension, like if it was like made now. Um, I mean, there's music. Like I'm in the Eden area of Final Fantasy 14. I hear the field music from Final Fantasy 8 and everything, and I was like, I know this music. Like Final Fantasy 14 honors it so well. It's amazing. Another thing they do to honor Final Fantasy 14, they have an Evilise raid, which I did and I participated, and it was fun. The Evilise raid, anybody knows what Evilise is? It's the world where Final Fantasy Tactics takes place and Final Fantasy 12. Even Fran makes a cameo, and like Ramza, like they had their own version of Ramza that's from our world, but then they show off the Ramza Final Fantasy Tactics. Like they mention Final Fantasy Tactics. Like that's I don't think Square ever makes a reference to Final Fantasy Tactics ever. Like or make a new tactics game, even though you can do that now with this guy here. Um, but yeah, I and then like Shadowbringers brings a lot of new raids too. Like it brought the Near Automata raids. They were fun. I like the first battle. They have a mixture of Nier's music and Final Fantasy music. It was it was really good. I like it. It was amazing. Like I mean, I'm not a big MMO person, but I love when the game is pushing you. I love that it rewards you instead of just like, well, you should have worked harder to like other games do. Like I love that it kind of tries to reward you to get it and everything, like an RPG should be. I'm not saying give me that weapon, but at least reward me. Like I actually got a few things from Final Fantasy 14. Like I have a level 75 Gunbreaker, and I was in the near raid, and no one was taking the near blindfold, so I took it for when I am ready. I can give my Gunbreaker a near bandana. Um, they had the golden saucer from Final Fantasy 7 in there. You can buy stuff. You can buy mounts and stuff. Some of the mounts found from Final Fantasy 7's history is in there. From Final Fantasy's history, like they had an event with Final Fantasy 15, and you could ride around in a mount in the Royal, Noxus's father's car. There's so many things right now, and it's amazing. And you could really thank Yoshi P for this because he does a lot of things for this for it. So yeah, he works really hard, and he's not like one of those guys that said that's a great idea, and then implement it like months later. He does it. That's a great idea. 2 weeks later, done. Like after people like suggested at Fanfest in front of him, and he said also this is his life work, which is great. And I've been playing Final Fantasy since PS3, so and I took breaks here and there, but I'm really understanding why people love this RPG, and I understand why people are friendly. They work hard to get up all the way up to Shadowbringers, and now it's on PS5, which I have a PS5, not to brag, but it's great. I love the update. I mean, it's 40 frames per second, but I'm used to 30 frames anyway for an RPG anyway, so ain't complaining. But yeah, and fast load times, and it's completely free. People are like, here, if you have Final Fantasy 7, you have the license, you have it, and I'm like, cool, that's awesome. I love that. I really do. I love that they're handling this. And then we're gonna get to Endwalker because Endwalker is gonna be the end of this arc that we've been building up to. This first arc of Final Fantasy 14, which has been, I think, maybe 10 years. Hold on. Well, I was slightly off. I was slightly off by it's 8 year an 8 year arc. This is like a Final Fantasy game that keeps going. And it's not bad. I don't mind it. It's like it's a Final Fantasy game that never ends. It's truly a Final Fantasy, the best way to say it. But Endwalker's going to be kind of interesting because like you have this new healing class that has funnel lasers and um that looks really cool. It's a berry. Apparently, they're going to be adding two new healing healing classifications. One's going to be barrier, and the other one is going to be just straight up healing. And I think a lot of people are just going to go to the barrier areas because barriers are just really good and heals multiple people at once. Um, over a date of time. But this one looks really cool. Like it can send a shield to reduce damage. It can do all this really interesting stuff. And also I still want to know what the DPS is. A lot of people are thinking it's gonna be something Reaper. Although he kept saying the Warrior Light isn't something of darkness. That's because people wanted a necromancer. I feel like we might get something involving animals and animal taming or something right there. So where you merge into one like that one guy. So I feel like that's what he's really hinting towards. Like, um, hell, I'm just gonna call it Beast Tamer. Beast Tamer will be probably a cool class. So you can merge. You have other animals and you merge with them as your armor, and it increases your power. That's something you probably didn't think. Probably someone probably wouldn't think of. Because I was just thinking about it watching that boss fight. That's why, because people were saying Reaper, and I can understand why, because he has a scythe. But they didn't think they didn't think like the best way. But I do think I do think we're gonna get some good. We're gonna have some lot of answers like who like we know what Zodiac is, but what does it look like? What does it want? It wants to end the world pretty much. What is Zatos's end game? Endwalker end game. And it's like it's interesting, and it's really interesting, and I can't wait for this. It's gonna be. I'm glad I'm part of it right now, and if you get to the video, end of the video, and if this all sounds interesting to you for Final Fantasy 14, I highly recommend the trial. I always tell people to try it out first before they buy it. And Final Fantasy has one of the best trials I've ever seen for an MMO ever. You get some restrictions, but you have this thing, which is you get the base. Like I said, you get the base game, and then you get the first extent, and then you get the first expansion. So, and you get up to level 60. So try it before you buy it. If you, and you get the aura. You get my favorite race in the game, which are the auras, and you get all the way to Heaven's Ward with the Dark Knight, um, the Mara, the Mechanist, the Arcanist, and then all the other classes included, except for the Bloodstorm and Shadowbringer stuff. But you need to buy it because it's stuck behind a paywall. So if you like this, please subscribe to this channel. It would help so much. You be doing me a favor by doing that. And if you enjoy more Final Fantasy content, I will be back with a friend. Hopefully, if I don't, I will be making more content. Hopefully about Final Fantasy 14, and maybe 2 weeks from now we'll talk about Fanfest. Who knows? Anything can happen. And just so you know, Final Fantasy 4, Final Podcast 14 is not just restricted to Final Fantasy. It could be talked about other MMOs if you want me to talk about it. I just won't talk about WoW because I just don't play WoW. I keep my eye out on it if it's great. Like I want to talk about some of the newer upcoming MMOs because like I feel like they need more light than what WoW does. So I'm just gonna be doing that. Like I mean, Fantasy Star, new Genesis coming up. I could maybe the next podcast in a couple weeks will probably be about that. Heck, maybe we could talk about Blue Protocol. I want to be an anime person in an anime world with my friends and be all anime like, and just fight around the Unreal Engine, which is really cool. I mean, there's a couple of modes I really want to try, but I don't have time for all of them. But I want to give them a try. Maybe, like I said, like I said, hopefully, hope. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry, but I'm doing this at late at night, around around at night time at 10 o'clock p.m. because I've been lazy and I wanted to do something like this for a while. So, like, favorite, and subscribe. And as always, may always may what's a good catchphrase? What's a good end slate for this? And may the light ever protect you.